WWE NXT Results, the 14th of February 2023. The Valentine's Day edition of WWE NXT opens up with a graphic in memory of Jerry Jarrett, who passed away at the age of 80 today. We're now live from the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, as Vic Joseph welcomes us. He's joined at ringside by WWE Hall of Famer Booker T. Grayson Waller vs. Tyler Bate. We go right to the ring and out comes Grayson Waller from his 1-week storyline suspension. Tyler Bate is out next as Alicia Taylor does the introductions. We see Jacy Jayne arriving to the building. The bell rings and Bate charges, but Waller rocks him. Waller beats Bate around as fans do dueling chants. Waller chokes Bate on the middle rope and taunts WWE Hall of Famer and Senior Vice President of Talent Development Creative Shawn Michaels in the camera. Bate fights back with chops. Bate drops Waller and nails a dropkick for a 2 count. Bate grounds Waller now. Waller with a back suplex for 2. Waller stomps on Bate and kicks him around to boos. Waller keeps control as the dueling chants start back up. Bate fights back with kicks and a drop kick, then a kip up for a pop. Bate with a standing shooting star press for a close 2 count. Waller sends Bate to the floor, but Bate pulls him out and goes to work. Waller turns it around at ringside and sends Bate back first into the announce table. Waller returns to the ring but slides back out, and hits the ground running right into a clothesline. We go to a picture-in-picture commercial. Back from the break and Waller is stretching Bate over his knee after hitting a knee strike to the face. Bate fights back with a chop but Waller knees him. They tangle and Bate hits the rebound lariat for a 2 count. They trade more strikes but now Bate suplexes him and mounts more offense. Bate hoists Waller to his shoulders, then spins him around and slams him to the mat. Bate leaps off the top but he has to roll through. Waller levels Bate and hits a big modified unprettier for 2. Waller mounts Bate with punches for 2. Fans chant "Let's go Waller, Waller sucks," as he cranks up for sweet chin music. Fans boo. Bate catches him with bop and bang, then levels him with strikes and a superkick. Waller blocks the Tyler Driver 97 and rolls him up with a handful of tights for 2. More back and forth between the two. Waller drops down for a pin and uses the ropes again, but the referee catches him. This allows Bate to roll Waller up for the pin to win. Winner, Tyler Bate. After the match, Waller is furious as he follows the referee, yelling at him. We go to replays. Bate celebrates in the corner as fans chant his name. Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs are backstage. Jensen is nervous about his date with NXT Women's Tag Team Champion Kiana James and says he's never. Briggs says that's okay. There are plenty of people your age who have never hit a home run. Jensen says he's never been on a date and Briggs can't believe he's never kissed a girl. Briggs goes on giving Jensen some advice. NXT Women's Tag Team Champion Fallon Henley walks in and Jensen just wants this to be perfect. She gives him some advice on whether or not he should go for the kiss when he takes her back home. Jensen is nervous and excited as Henley tells him to have fun. We see Jacy Jayne walking backstage. The camera suddenly cuts to gorilla position and we see Grayson Waller arguing with WWE Hall of Famer and Senior Vice President of Talent Development Creative Shawn Michaels. Michaels is not happy as he orders WWE Performance Center head coach Matt Bloom to escort a furious Waller away. Michaels yells at the camera and tells production to cut to commercial. Back from the break and we get a new vignette from Apollo Crews. He says Vengeance Day was his way to get on step closer. Crews throws his diary down. We see highlights of the attack from Dabba-Kato as Crews speaks. Crews says he felt Kato's hug and saw the smile, then out of nowhere everything went dark as Kato attacked him. Why? Crews says no phone call from Kato, no text message. He then tuned in last week to find out why, and all Kato said was Crews knows why he attacked him. Cruz says they shared the road together, major moments, family time. Cruz says Kato has his reasons and now Cruz has his. Cruz is fired up as he says he's no longer focused on the past or the NXT title, he's focused on just revenge. We go back to the ring and out comes JC Jane to mostly boos. Jane takes the mic and says last week was the end of the Toxic Attraction story but the beginning of the JC Jane story and now it's all about her. She brags about being the talk of NXT for the past week, not NXT champion Britt Baker, Carmelo Hayes or NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez, and damn sure not Gigi Dollin, it's all about her. Jane does not regret stomping Dollin but she does regret not doing it sooner. Jane has watched the footage 1,000 times but what's better than that? 1,001 times. Jane shows us a video package on how she turned on Dollin. Jane taunts Dollin and people who ask if she really had to kick Dollin that hard. Jane says Dollin's days of doing half the work and taking all the credit are over. Jane compares Dollin to Marty Jannetty and says everyone will see her for what she is. Dollin's security blanket, Jane, is done and she will no longer cover for Dollin's mistakes. Jane is done talking about Dollin now. She tells everyone to listen up for the most important thing she's ever had to say, screw you. Fans boo. Jane goes on about how everyone saw her as the one in Toxic Attraction who didn't belong, the third wheel. Jane goes on about Toxic Attraction and says she is the last woman standing. The music starts back up as Dollin screams me. It's me. Over and over. We see Roxanne Perez picking up Mako Satomura at the airport earlier. They will face Katana Chance and Kaden Carter in tonight's main event. Thea Hale is backstage looking a little shaken up still after being dragged away by Ava Raine last week. Andre Chase and Duke Hudson walk up. They ask how she is and tell her she can tell them what happened with the schism. They offer to get tonight's match with Tiffany Stratton pushed back. Hale says she's good and if she backs out tonight, the schism wins, and she can't let that happen. Hale says tonight she will have to look fear dead in the face, and tell it tonight you're going to get a Chase University-sized ass whooping. Hale walks off and we go back to commercial. Back from the break and we get a vignette from Sol Ruka. Ruka talks about how people are afraid of making mistakes but no one is perfect. She recalls trying the Soul Snatcher at practice the first time, and says it was awful, but she worked on it and now you can ask Zoe Stark just how good the move is. Ruka wants a match with Stark and says every time she falls, she's ready to get right back up and go. Thea Hale vs Tiffany Stratton. We go back to the ring and out first comes Tiffany Stratton for the next match. Thea Hale is out next and she's fired up. The bell rings and they go at it to start. Stratton looks to take control but Hale fights back and nails a drop kick. We see the Dyad suddenly appear in the crowd to boos now. They are wearing the yellow masks. Stratton takes advantage of the distraction to attack but Hale rolls her for two. Stratton stomps away on Hale now. Hale catches Stratton on a counter but she's terrified now as she spots a masked Joe Gacy on the platform above the crowd. Stratton takes advantage and attacks from behind for a 2 count. Stratton keeps control and springboards in from the apron with a big senton. Hale kicks out at 2 and Stratton is a bit frustrated. Hale mounts some offense and Stratton rolls to the floor to regroup. Hale runs the ring and nails a suicide dive at the announce table. Hale is fired up but she turns around to spot a masked Ava Raine in the front row. Ava unmasks and stares Hale down. Hale rushes back into the ring but Stratton takes control. Stratton with some of her signature offense, then the big moonsault from the corner for the pin to win. Winner, Tiffany Stratton. After the match, Stratton stands tall as her music hits and we go to a replay. Hale sits up against the ropes and hugs herself while rocking back and forth. Duke and Chase try to console her. JV Bernal approaches Tatum Paxley and Ivy Nile backstage. He tells Tatum how this is a very special day, it only happens one night a year. He asks if she will be his Jarvitine. He produced a Valentine's Day gift with his face on it. Paxley thanks him and says she's taken. Bernal says it's her loss. He says the exact same line to Nile and she tells him to save it, then says she would love to be his Jarvitine. He can't believe it but says that's fantastic. Nile suddenly puts Bernal in her Dragon Sleeper, the diamond chain submission, and he goes down. Isla Dawn's voice is suddenly heard coming from an object nearby. She tries to stir things up between the two, saying Ivy doesn't want to be chained to Paxley, and Paxley doesn't want to be weighed down by Nile. Paxley and Nile don't let it get to them as they shrug Dawn's comments off and leave together. Axiom vs Damon Kemp. We go back to the ring and out comes Axiom. Back to commercial. Back from the break and out comes Damon Kemp as we see what led to this match. The bell rings and Axiom rocks Kemp, then unloads with stiff offense. Kemp kicks out at 2. Kemp dodges kicks and rolls to the floor but Axiom stays on him, hitting a suicide dive and staying on his feet for a pop. Axiom brings it back in but misses off the top as Kemp moves. They tangle and Kemp nails a big wheelbarrow suplex, then a big German suplex, and another. Kemp clubs Axiom through the ropes to the floor, then runs out and levels him with a clothesline. Kemp brings it back in and mounts Axiom with right hands. Axiom kicks out at 2. Axiom mounts some offense and hits a big drop kick now, then a running kick in the corner. Axiom goes to the top for a high crossbody but Kemp rolls through and holds it for a 2 count. Axiom comes right back with a kick but Kemp levels him with a lariat. Kemp with a big electric chair suplex for 2. Axiom counters and drops Kemp with an open palm strike. Axiom with a kick. Axiom calls for the finish, then nails a running kick to the jaw for the pin to win. Winner, Axiom. After the match, Axiom stands tall as the music hits and we go to replays. We see Twitter photos of Brooks Jensen and NXT Women's Tag Team Champion Kiana James on their date. Josh Briggs and NXT Women's Tag Team Champion Fallon Henley are backstage watching. Briggs tells her to quit looking at Twitter comments and look at how happy Jensen and James are instead. Henley says she can't take this anymore, she's got to tell Jensen what she knows. They walk off with Briggs wondering what she knows. Still to come, NXT champion Bron Breakker is back. Back to commercial. Back from the break and we see Grayson Waller's Twitter video, showing how security is kicking him out of the building after being ordered by Shawn Michaels. Waller rants about how Shawn doesn't even have enough respect to let him change before kicking him out. Waller says he's the biggest star of NXT and Shawn should be on his knees thanking him for his presence. Waller calls Shawn a hypocrite and says HBK doesn't exist. He says Michaels is a stooge and Waller runs NXT. We go back to the ring and out comes NXT champion Bron Breakker for his first appearance since Vengeance Day. Bron says it feels a little different in here tonight. Fans chant Grayson Waller sucks. Now, one door closes and another opens, but this next challenge is different for him. Bron says this is the match everyone wants to see, right? Me versus him. The music interrupts and out comes Jinder Mahal, Sangha and Veer Mahan, instead of Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. Bron says Jinder is not the man he expected to see. Jinder says a great champion should always expect the unexpected. Jinder and Indus Shah are in the ring now. Jinder says he respectfully interrupts because he admires how Bron has carried NXT on his back for almost an entire year. Bron is NXT, he is the whole brand. Jinder knows the weight Bron carries on his shoulder, and the stress of retaining his title over the next challenger. Jinder also understands the media interviews, the late nights and early mornings, the lifestyle that comes with being champion. Jinder says from a former WWE champion to the current NXT champion, is the title reign you envisioned? Is this what you dreamed of? Is this what you thought your title reign would consist of? Bryn says damn straight, what are you talking about? Jinder says Bryn must be deaf if he doesn't hear the small packet of fans who once loved him but are now changing their tune-up. Fans pop and bark for Bryn. Some fans chant Bryn Breaker sucks. Now but just a few. Bryn says fans are entitled to their opinions. Jinder goes on about how Bryn cannot acknowledge the tides are changing, and that he's tired and weak. Jinder says that is why he's challenging Bryn to a title match next week. Bryn says that's fine by him, he's a simple guy and Jinder didn't have to come out and waste everyone's time with the new three-man band here. Veer charges but Jinder holds him back. Fans chant 3 megabytes. Now. Jinder says these people don't like him and he said the 3 megabytes comment so people will cheer him on and like him, but after Jinder takes the title, they still won't like him and won't even feel bad for him, but don't worry, the modern day Maharaja will. Jinder's music starts back up as they back out of the ring with Bryn staring them down, raising the NXT title in the air. Kaden Carter and Katana Chance approach NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez and Mako Satomura backstage. They had some time to think and admit they may have been a little aggressive last week, but they were pissed at being screwed out of the titles, and it had nothing to do with Perez. They are really sorry. Perez accepts the apology. She asks if they're saying they don't want the match tonight. They're not saying that. They definitely want the match because who wouldn't want to wrestle the final boss? They're still going to the ring tonight and say it will be in honor. They bow to Satomura and then leave. Perez thanks Satomura for coming so far to help her out. Satomura says she has her reasons. Perez nods and looks a little concerned. We see NXT North American Champion Lee walking backstage for his open challenge. Tony D'Angelo and Channing Stacks Lorenzo are seen in the background watching him. Back to commercial. Back from the break and Mackenzie Mitchell is backstage with Indy Hartwell, who requested this time. She says she enjoyed watching Gigi Dolan get her skull kicked in because of what Toxic Attraction put her through and how the locker room despise them. She listened to JC Jane spit her hot garbage earlier tonight, and while Jane thinks she will shoot to the top of the division, she's dead wrong and the only place she will end up is right behind Indy. Indy walks off. NXT North American title match, Von Wagner vs. Lee. We go back to the ring and NXT North American Champion Lee is out to kick off his open challenge. The music hits and out comes Tony D'Angelo with Channing Stacks Lorenzo. Dijak suddenly comes from behind to choke Tony D out. Stacks attacks to save Tony D as officials try to restore order. Von Wagner attacks Lee out of nowhere from behind in the ring as Mr. Stone cheers him on. The bell rings and Lee kicks Von. They go at it and Von takes Lee to the corner, then tries to launch him across the ring but Lee hangs on. Von sends Lee back into the turnbuckles, then tosses him across the ring. Von works Lee over in the corner but runs into boots. Lee turns it around in the corner as fans rally. Von catches Lee and sends him to the floor, hitting his face on the edge of the apron. Von follows and rams Lee back into the edge of the apron, then face first into the announce table. Stone yells at Von about how he can't win the title outside of the ring. Fans boo as Von manhandles Lee, smashing his face into the announce table over and over. Von brings it back in but Lee is waiting with strikes. Lee beats Von down but Von nails a big clothesline for 2. More back and forth as fans rally for Lee. Lee ducks a big boot and slams Von by his leg, stomps him, then nails a standing moonsault for 2. Lee goes on with a running uppercut in the corner, then a kick. Lee leaps off the second rope but Von catches him in midair, then spikes him face first into the mat. Von runs over Lee with a big boot for 2. Fans rally for Lee now as Von presses him high in the air. Von goes to launch Lee to the floor but Lee slides out and nails a superkick. Lee with more big kicks to bring Von to one knee. Lee with a flying knee. Lee nails the cardiac kick from the corner for the pin to win and retain. Winner, Lee. After the match, Lee stands tall with the title as the music hits. We go to replays. Stone stares Lee down as his celebration continues. Hank Walker approaches Drew Gulak backstage and shows his new singlet off. Walker's ring boots didn't come in, so he still has to wear his work boots. Gulak thought that might happen, so he brought a pair of his own ring boots for Walker to wear. Gulak tells Walker to lace up because his match is next. Back to commercial. Hank Walker vs. Charlie Dempsey. We go back to the ring and Charlie Dempsey is out, as is Hank Walker with Drew Gulak. Walker is wearing his new singlet and a pair of Gulak's ring boots. The bell rings and they go at it, tangling in the middle of the ring. Dempsey unloads with strikes. Walker fights back and they collide with the same move, both going down in the middle of the ring. Dempsey grabs Walker but Walker wrestles him to the mat by the arm. Gulak barks words of encouragement as Dempsey tries to get to the rope. Walker pulls him back but Dempsey takes him down and stretches him with a submission. Dempsey gets the hold locked in and Walker taps out for the finish. Winner, Charlie Dempsey. After the match, Dempsey stands tall as the music hits and Gulak looks on from ringside. Dempsey applies the submission again and stretches Walker as officials try to restore order. Gulak just watches from ringside as Dempsey stretches Walker. Dempsey finally lets go and Gulak enters the ring. Gulak and Dempsey stare at each other, and Gulak nods. Dempsey and Gulak then leave together as Walker seethes. We go backstage to Von Wagner tearing up his locker room as Mr. Stone just sits there. Von says the NXT North American title just slipped through his hands. Von asks if Stone has anything to say. Stone has plenty to say. Von didn't lose because of lack of in-ring ability, as he has plenty of that. He lost because he has no connection to Stone, to the WWE Universe, to anyone. Stone says Von's walls are up and they have to come on. He's got to break his walls down. Stone says help me help you. Help me help you, Von. Stone doesn't have time for anyone with their walls up. The biggest thing going for you is your mean come Tuesdays, and what he has time for is the guy inside, and believe me, Von has a guy inside there. Stone says he will get Von where he wants to go, but Von has to help him help him. Help me help you. Stone walks off as Von thinks things over. We cut to NXT Tag Team Champions Gallus at their pub. They are playing a round of billiards when Pretty Deadly walks in. They have some friendly words and Pretty Deadly says Gallus isn't so great, because they can beat Gallus, in the ring and at billiards. Gallus wins the game and taunts Pretty Deadly. Pretty Deadly wants another game. Gallus tells them to keep their glasses filled with beer and maybe. Pretty Deadly wants a title shot if they win. Gallus keeps winning, despite antics by Pretty Deadly, who keep refilling the mugs for Gallus. The game is over and Gallus thanks them for picking up the huge bar tab. Pretty Deadly is shocked at the amount. Gallus says all they had to do was ask if they wanted a title shot. Gallus isn't the New Day. Mackenzie Mitchell is backstage with Ilja Dragunov. He talks about his injury and recovery. He believes pain helps to make you feel alive. Mackenzie says JD McDonough isn't happy to see Dragunov back. She mentions the detached retina injury from last week. Dragunov says retribution was coming, and for JD, this is just the beginning. Trick Williams appears on the screen behind them, and he's in the ring calling out Ilja. Trick says he's not leaving the ring until Dragunov comes out to meet him face to face. Dragunov excuses himself. Trick continues talking trash as Dragunov makes his way through the backstage area. The music hits and out comes Dragunov to the ring. Dragunov says Trick is very entertaining with all the phrases and rhymes. He's the life of the party, but Dragunov didn't come back to NXT for this. Dragunov says Trick felt what it's like to get in the way of his mission. Trick suddenly decks Dragunov, but Dragunov takes him out with a kick, sending him retreating to the floor. The music hits and out comes McDonough with his eye bandaged up. He says Dragunov should be in jail instead of the ring after what he did last week. JD says Dragunov should have stayed home, but now he's going to force JD to show the people what he's made of. JD says he's going to beat Dragunov so bad this time that he's unable to hold his son. Dragunov is fired up now as JD looks on from the floor. Trick suddenly attacks from behind and beats Dragunov down while talking trash. Trick leaves. JD goes to enter the ring, but Dragunov screams at him. JD backs off as Dragunov recovers. We see Katani Chance and Kaden Carter walking backstage. Meiko Satomura and Roxanne Perez are also shown. Back to commercial. Back from the break and Carmelo Hayes is backstage, commenting to himself about how Jinder Mahal gets a NXT title shot next week and he skipped the line. Trick Williams comes in and he's hyped up about fighting Ilja Dragunov next week. Hayes warns him and says Ilja is different. Trick isn't worried and says Ilja will learn he's the meanest, prettiest and baddest. Hayes gets hyped up with Trick now. We see Brooks Jensen and Kiana James wrapping up their date as he walks her to her front door. It's a bit awkward, but they're about to kiss when Fallon Henley appears and tells them to stop. Fallon wanted this to be a big night for Jensen, but James is cheating on him. James says this isn't true. Fallon says she heard James say "I love you Zach" on the phone. James says this is true, she does love Zach, because that's her brother. Briggs looks down at Fallon and asks, "Really?" Zach opens the front door and says something to James about letting her dogs out because he didn't know how late she would be getting home. Fallon goes to speak, but James tells her to save it. James asks when will Fallon trust her? James enters her house and shuts the door. Fallon apologizes to Jensen, but he doesn't want to hear it. Briggs and Jensen walk off together, leaving Fallon behind. NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez and Meiko Satomura vs Katani Chance and Kaden Carter. We go back to the ring for tonight's main event, and out first comes Katani Chance and Kaden Carter. NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez is out first for her team. She stops and waits as Meiko Satomura makes her way out. They head to the ring together as fans cheer them on. Carter stars off with Perez, taking her down and stomping on her. Chance tags in and keeps control for a quick 2 count. Chance grounds Perez by her arm now as fans rally. They go at it and Chance hits a Hurricane Rana, but Perez lands on her feet and shows her up. Carter tags in and rolls Perez up for 2 off the quick double team. Perez fights out of a hold and tags in Satomura. Satomura offers her hand and Carter shakes it. They go at it and Satomura blocks a kick. Carter slaps her. Satomura unloads with stiff kicks now. Chance comes in, but Perez takes care of her. Satomura and Perez go corner to corner with running uppercuts on each opponent. They then clear the ring to a pop. Perez with a suicide dive to Chance. Satomura runs the apron and leaps out to take Carter down on the floor. Satomura and Perez return to the ring to pose as fans pop, and we go to a picture-in-picture commercial. Back from the break and Chance is in control of Perez after she and Carter turned it round during the break. Chance with a close 2 count. Perez finally gets to her corner and in comes Satomura unloading on Carter. Satomura knocks Chance off the apron. Carter rocks Satomura, but Satomura unloads with kicks. Satomura drops Carter and nails a roundhouse kick for a close 2 count. Satomura drives Carter into the mat. Perez tags back in with unique offense on Carter for a close 2 count as Chance breaks it up. Perez and Carter trade strikes in the middle of the ring now. They trade counters and Carter spikes Perez into the mat as fans do dueling chants. Chance comes back in and keeps control of Perez for a close 2 count. Perez blocks a move and hits the Russian leg sweep. Satomura tags back in and grabs Chance, but Chance rolls her for 2. Chance rocks Satomura into the corner. Satomura fights Carter off and sends her to the floor. Satomura goes to the top but Chance meets her. Carter tags in and goes to the top with Chance and Satomura. Perez runs over but Chance knocks her to the floor, then leaps and takes her down on the floor again. Carter is still with Satomura up top. Chance comes back over to assist for the big double team to send Satomura to the mat. Chance covers for two. Chance leaps off the top but has to roll through as Satomura moves. Satomura with a big kick and more offense. Carter kicks Satomura. They trade strikes and Satomura nails a big overhead kick. Perez tags back in and thrust kicks Carter in the gut, then hits Pop Rocks in the middle of the ring for the pin to win. Winners, Roxanne Perez and Meiko Satomura. After the match, Perez and Satomura stand tall in the middle of the ring. Satomura applauds Perez as she raises the title in the air and we go to replays. Satomura takes the mic and says she did something for Perez, so now she wants Perez to do something for her. Satomura points at the title as fans cheer. Perez says it would be her honor. Perez bows and raises the title in the air as her music starts up. Satomura and Perez face off as NXT goes off the air.